Hello, everybody. Welcome to Joe Palmetto, Joe the lawyer. Thank you for tuning in. I'm a practicing Pittsburgh criminal defense attorney. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Trying to grow the channel. So anything you can do to support me, you can support me for free. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. Very easy way to support the channel and get things moving for me. So today we're going to talk about Timothy Busfield. He was recently granted bail on his sex charge. He's got a child sex charge case, and before we dive into that, I want to talk about the docket overview. So this is something I'm going to do every episode, or nearly every episode, where we look at the cases of that we're looking at. We get a status on those cases, and we also look at my predictions. So the core of the show is going to be the docket overview. There's going to be between 6 and 8 criminal cases that are happening around the country that we're going to follow and we're going to update on. And remember, I'm a practicing Pittsburgh criminal defense attorney. I'm going into my 13th year of legal practice. I really can't believe it. But in a lot of other YouTubers out there, they're great. They're fantastic. I watch them. Okay, but not a lot of them are practicing criminal defense attorneys, and they're commenting on criminal trials, and they know something, and they probably know a lot, but they don't know as much as a practicing criminal defense lawyer. So this is a docket overview here with Joe Palmetto, Joe the lawyer. These are the 6 cases that we're going to be looking at on a regular basis. And, you know, I've left 2 open. I figure I can handle about 8 total, because I would like you, the viewers, to chime in and let me know some of the cases that you want me to cover. These are 6 of the most popular. We first have people of the state of California versus Nick Reiner. He's still pending an arraignment, which is scheduled for February 23rd. We have USA versus Luigi Mangione. And that is pending motions, which I've covered in previous ones. His trial date is October 13th, 2026. It may get moved back if they need more time. Then we have the state of New Mexico versus Timothy Busfield. We're going to talk about his case specifically today. His next court date, my understanding, is January 29th. It's pending, and it appears, I couldn't tell for sure, but it looks like that's a status conference. Then we have state of Utah versus Tyler Robinson, the man who assassinated Charlie Kirk, pending a status conference, January 29th. A couple other cases I'm interested in. State of Nevada versus Dwayne Keefe D. Davis. That's the man who allegedly participated in, even though if he didn't directly kill Tupac Shakur. Pending discovery, trial date August 10, 26. And then the state of Texas versus Brad Chandler Simpson. We'll go into that case in more detail later on. But essentially the murder of this man's wife. It's pending trial. Looks like the trial date tentatively is April 2026. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to go into Joe's predictions and score. And I want you to get some value out of me. I want you to say, listen, this Joe Palmetto's Joe the lawyer. He knows what he's talking about. So I'm going to make predictions on these cases. I'm not always going to be wrong, but I'm going to try to always going to be right. I'm going to try to maintain a winning record here. So one of the predictions I made about a week ago was Timothy Busfield would be released on bond awaiting trial. And he was released on bond awaiting trial. So that's one score in my favor. So I hope you'll tune in for this docket report. You can see we're going to go into we'll go into detail on other cases on the docket report. But it's going to be a big part of the show. And it's going to give you guys some continuity, let you know what to expect with me. I'm going to cover those 6 trials, but if there are other trials that you want Joe the lawyer to look at and analyze, that you want to follow, have your attention, let me know in the comments below so that I can decide which ones, and I'm going to add 2 more. I think I can do 8 at any given time. And of course, when a trial ends, we'll get a new one going on. So that's what you can expect from Joe the lawyer. We're going to look at the docket overview, and we're going to go into updates on specific cases. And of course, I'm going to make predictions. And the goal here is for everybody to learn, for us to learn There's entertainment value as well, but I want all of us to learn at the same time. So when you watch these things, you watch these criminal trials, you get a better understanding of the criminal process overall. Now let's jump directly into the case that we're looking at today. Judge orders release of actor Timothy Busfield pending child sex abuse case. Emmy Award winner faces charges of inappropriately touching a minor while on set directing a TV series. Let's scroll down here. A judge has ordered that actor Timothy Busfield be released from jail during a detention hearing on child sex abuse charges. The order Tuesday by State District Court Judge David Murphy is linked to accusations that Busfield inappropriately touched a minor while working as a director on the set of the series The Cleaning Lady. The judge ordered that the defendant was released on his own recognizance pending trial. Busfield, will be released will be supervised upon release by pretrial service in Albuquerque and can leave the state to live at home. I did a little bit of Googling. It looks like he lives in New York, the state of New York. He lives somewhere kind of outside of New York City, which is pretty typical for an actor, somebody in Hollywood, etc. They usually live in Los Angeles or New York. Now, one of the differences here between my prediction and what happened is the judge released him on his own recognizance. So at the hearing, his lawyers had argued that he be released to EHM, electronic home monitoring, and or house arrest, where they put a bracelet on a leg bracelet on you, and then you're supervised by pretrial services. Nowadays, they use a GPS monitor so they can literally tell exactly where the person is. And what happens is they'll establish a range, around the person's house. And if they leave that range, they will be instantly alerted so that the police or probation can go pick him up. He violated his house arrest. They take him to jail until he sees a judge. But here they did not do that. They didn't do electronic home monitoring / house arrest. The judge released him without any of those conditions on what's called an ROR bond, where you're released on your own recognizance. So you don't have to be monitored electronically. You just have to comply with the conditions that are listed. Busfield, an Emmy Award-winning actor known for appearances in West Wing, Field of Dreams, and 30-something, and I've seen him in West Wing and Field of Dreams, I've never seen 30-something, was ordered held without bond last week at his first court appearance. Busfield called the allegations lies in a video shared before he turned himself in. So he was made aware of the warrant and then willingly turned himself in, which is, turning yourself in is a factor in the bond consideration. At the hearing on Tuesday, Busfield was handcuffed and dressed in an orange jail uniform at the hearing in a New Mexico State District Court, while wife and actor Melissa Gilbert watched from the court gallery. Excuse me. Gilbert was tearful while exiting the courtroom after the judge ordered Busfield's release. Gilbert, who played Laura Ingalls in the 70s and 80s TV series Little House on the Prairie, is on the list of potential witnesses submitted ahead of the hearing. Albuquerque police issued a warrant for Busfield's arrest earlier this month on 2 counts of criminal sexual contact of a minor and 1 count of child abuse. A criminal complaint alleges the acts occurred on the set of the series The Cleaning Lady. According to the criminal complaint, an investigator with the police says the child reported Busfield touched him on private areas over his clothing on one occasion when he was 7 years old and another time when he was 8. The boy's twin brother told authorities he was touched by Busfield, but did not specify where. He said he didn't say anything because he didn't want to get in trouble. On Monday, Busfield's attorneys submitted 2 brief audio recordings of initial police interviews in which the children say Busfield did not touch them in private areas. The attorneys in court filing argue the complaint characterizes the interviews as a failure to disclose abuse, but an unequivocal denial is materially different from a mere absence of disclosure. According to the criminal complaint, one of the boys disclosed during a therapy session he was inappropriately touched by the show's director. Those records were obtained by police during the investigation. Arguing Tuesday for Busfield's continued detention, Assistant District Attorney Savannah Brandenburg Koch called evidence of abuse against Busfield strong and specific. The boys' allegations are supported by medical findings and by their therapists. Their accounts were specific and not exaggerated. She also described a documented pattern of sexual misconduct, abuse of authority, and grooming behavior by Busfield over the past 3 decades. So there are additional allegations besides these ones in the case that he's currently facing. Prosecutors also say witnesses have expressed fear regarding retaliation and professional harm. GPS, and he's talking about the electronic co-monitoring, the house arrest, because Busfield's lawyers had asked for this. They got more than they asked for. GPS is not going to tell this court if he is around children or talking to witnesses. Busfield's attorneys have argued the allegations emerged only after the boys lost their role in the TV show, creating a financial and retaliatory motive. The filings detailed what the attorneys said was a history of fraud by both the boys' father and mother. They cited an investigation by Warner Brothers into the allegations that found the allegations unfounded. Busfield also submitted letters vouching for his character, and as attorneys say, he passed an independent polygraph test. Legal experts say New Mexico is among a few states that allow polygraph evidence in criminal cases, but a judge's final say over one can be used. There are strict requirements for admission. So, couple of things. First, let's start with that. We'll work our way backwards. The polygraph, in Pennsylvania and in the majority of states in the United States, polygraph results are not admissible at trial. The courts and the law generally views polygraphs as junk science. It's not scientifically accepted, founded, recognized, firm enough. Scientific procedures behind are not firm enough to allow it to be admitted in a court setting at trial. Now, what we do in Pennsylvania is sometimes the prosecutor will agree to have the defendant submit to a polygraph because it may give them an idea of whether or not they have the right person. But it has to be done through agreement of both the parties. It's not admissible at trial. It's interesting in New Mexico that it would be. Now, the problem probably is going to be that Busfield and his attorneys, they went and did this polygraph without deciding who the polygraph expert would be, who the polygraph scientist would be. And so the Commonwealth may not, if they do agree, or if this does go to trial, they may need another firm, another company, another expert to do the polygraph analysis. But it's very fascinating that New Mexico allows it. It can be very strong evidence one way or the other, right? Like if the person shows signs that they're being dishonest, it's probably going to hammer their case. Whereas a person shows that they're being honest, it could really, really boost the case at trial. So that's not something I've dealt with directly because, again, in Pennsylvania, they're just not allowed. It's just not allowed at trial. A jury or a judge will never see it. As far as retaliation, I would say that's extremely unlikely in a case like this. I mean, Busfield has this very high profile. He's very, very rich. If he pulled anything like that, it would almost certainly be known, and the court would come down on him like the wrath of God. So I just don't believe this is the type of case where retaliation is serious. He lives in New York. Who knows where these victims live? So I think it's pretty unlikely that there would be retaliation. The Commonwealth, in Pennsylvania, we refer to the state of Pennsylvania as the Commonwealth. The prosecution is always going to cite those sorts of fears of retaliation. But the courts generally don't take them too seriously unless there's specific evidence to show that. Now, just reading this, I think this case is going to be headed to trial, and it's because, they say here, these children, it appears they did a forensic interview where they have an expert psychologist or psychiatrist sit down with the children. The accounts were specific and not exaggerated. I wonder if both of these kids are listed as victims, as they are twins on the criminal complaint. I know The boy's twin brother was also touched, but did not specify where. Whereas we have the 7-year-old and 7 to 8-year-old who does specify in the private areas. So this is going to go to trial, and these kids are going to have to testify at trial almost certainly. The thing to remember is, like, I doubt somebody like Busfield would take a plea in this, okay? But when you get released from jail earlier, it can make it harder to take a plea. So, for instance, Busfield's been in jail for about a month, 3 to 4 weeks. And if he sat in jail until trial, he would have 9, 10 months, maybe a year or longer already accrued. And sometimes you can make what we call a time served plea, right? He sat in jail 12 months, 18 months. That's all the Commonwealth is asking for. They put you on probation for 10 years and release you. In a case like this, he's probably looking at more jail/prison time than just that. So it may not really truly matter, but sometimes, I've had cases where a client was facing 3 years in jail or so, and we got to the 12-month, or they sat in jail awaiting trial for 18, 24 months. And then when they pled, we just got them what's called time served, and they were released, and they had already done their time up front. And when you do your time up front, you're more likely to take a plea, right? Because you're getting out instead of going back to jail. Whereas Busfield, he's getting out now. By the time he goes to trial, he ain't going to want to go back. It's going to be 12 months. It'll be 18 months before he goes to trial, maybe 2 years. And then he's not going to want to go back to jail, and he's only accrued a couple of weeks in jail. So he better win his trial. And he's probably not going to take a plea because, again, he doesn't want to go back to jail. So that's how the incentives work, right? If somebody sits in jail, accrues time, it's easier decision for them to take a guilty plea or even a no contest plea in which you don't admit guilt, but you accept there's enough evidence by the Commonwealth or the prosecution to convict you. You're more likely to take that plea because then it means you're getting out of jail, or you only have a little bit more time to do, and then you can just do probation. But if you're out of jail pending trial, you're much more likely to fight the case because you don't want to go into jail and or go back to jail. So Busfield is going to sort of face that situation. So this case is definitely going to be interesting. It's going to have a lot of twists and turns. We already have a polygraph. We already have a direct denial. So the only thing left for the prosecution to do is basically, or the defense to do when they go to trial, is they're going to have to cast doubt on the authenticity of these children's statements, essentially call them liars. They're also going to use the fact that the parents have engaged in fraud previously. I can't recall what that is or what it was. I thought I read it in a different article. They're going to use that against the kids. So they have these parents who create fraud. They have these kids whose statements are, although they look good, they're a little bit murky. So you have these kids making statements that are not that powerful, a little bit murky. Parents with a history of fraud. I think he's probably going to have a pretty decent defense. Now, does that guarantee victory? No. Should he consider a deal? Yes. Will he probably not take a deal? Probably won't. And one of the biggest factors here is in these types of cases, you become a registered sex offender. Now, I don't know what New Mexico's laws are like, but in Pennsylvania, you're essentially a 25-year registered sex offender or lifetime. So taking one of these deals, even if you avoid jail, it puts you on the sex offender registry, which I could talk about that for a long time, but that jams your life up, man. You can't go to schools, you can't go to playgrounds. You have to report to the state police every time you move, everywhere you work. I mean, they are on you like flies on X. So it would really, really hamper somebody like Busfield. It's really, really going to hamper his career. I want to see something real quick, though. Busfield age. So he's 68 years old. I'm assuming, he was working on a movie, so I'm assuming he still wants to continue to work. But, at 68, he might want to take a deal just to avoid jail or prison. Because if he goes to prison, he could go to prison 5-10 year minimum. And he could be in prison the rest of his life. So he may seriously want to consider a deal so that he can enjoy his golden years as a free man rather than in prison. prison, even if he is a registered sex offender. The truth about that is, if you're really, really rich, it doesn't make it that hard. I've had poor people who are on the sex offender registry, and they literally get charged with new crimes because they didn't tell the state police where they were living. Well, they ended up being homeless. And then they got charged with felonies because they didn't report that they were homeless. And usually the prosecution has very little sympathy for people in these situations. So, whether or not it really makes sense, right? Like, if somebody became homeless, should we throw them back in jail essentially just for that? I mean, when you're on the registered sex offender list, it's almost illegal and criminal for you to be homeless. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you come back for more. I hope you get excited about my docket report and my predictions. And this is one that I got right. We'll have more on Nick Reiner, Luigi Mangione, etc. in the future. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. Everybody left me a ton of comments on the last video. Truly appreciate it. Those are the best things to drive the algorithm and get my videos attention. Please leave comments. Please like. Please share. Thanks a lot.